prepared an ethical issue, a hypothetical ethical issue, because of course it was there was a misunderstanding last time because there's no IPO currently because of the current state of the organization. So I'll just share my screen so we can share our ethical situation. So just to give a recap on what is IPO, just to give a refresher for everyone. So the IPO is an accredited integrated professional organization. It's law mandated according to RA 8981, the PRC modernization law mandated organization with automatic membership for all licensed practitioners. So practitioners may join the other non-mandated organizations like PARA, REBAP, or NREA, but they are still required to join the IPO. It was given to Philrest before, but it was denied renewal back in 2018. So there is no currently IPO. But then, of course, the need for IPO is still at large since there is a lot of modernization needed in the industry. So to cut things short, since this is our second time, so we've prepared an ethical issue with Group 10, and Group 10 will also give us our ethical issue of their own. So our hypothetical issue is, what if there is a rumor against several IPO board members, many of which are from its pre-accreditation days, and they are being accused for covering for our local developers' colorum practices, turning a blind eye to their methods. It can be noted that this developer has close ties with the IPO even before their accreditation. It is somewhat of an open secret in the industry that the IPO is very close to this developer, since many of their members work directly for the developer's projects. And let's say you yourself has had encounters with these colorum persons working for the said developer. Would you still support the IPO if you yourself knew about these allegations and these things happening right now? So I'd like to turn over the floor first to my group mate, Sir Erwin Madlangbayan, to give his introduction to our group stance as well as some arguments given to what we think we will do in this situation. Sir Erwin.
Yeah. So, John, next slide, please. All right. Our group stance is that yes, we still need to support IPO despite this issue. Next slide, please. Okay. Based on our code of ethics and next slide, please. So under our code of ethics resolution, Article 3, Professional Rules of Ethics and Responsibilities, Section 5, this is regarding the accreditation and integrated professional organization, which is IPO. The practitioner shall support the IPO by actively participating in its program and activities. All right. In case of these kinds of scenarios na mayroong mga problems, being a member, you need to be an active. If you know some problems internally happening or externally or external factors, you need to be active. You need to voice out that these things are happening. Kasi if you are not voicing out, it's also a way na you are not participating. When you're not participating ethically, you are actively violating the guidelines itself. Secondly, the practitioner shall abide by the procedures on mediation, conciliation, and arbitration of grievances and disputes. A practitioner who is a party to any such grievances or disputes shall, as far as practicable, exhaust all possible administrative remedies within the context of the IPO bylaws before elevating the same to jurisdiction of the board and or the commission and or to any court or tribunal. Well, we understand naman na in our field, real estate field, there are some practices talaga na it violates our guidelines, the ethical standards ng lahat ng common people or common practitioners. Pero being a member of IPO, or if in case in the future we will be able to organize and establish a one unit, one organization that will have its own guidelines and IRR. Based on our uh, based on our ethics and responsibilities as a member, we need to exhaust all the possibilities na pwede natin tignan. Like for example, in this case, we understand or we discovered that a developer is hiding people or practicing colorum practices uh, in real estate. So we as a member, we need to report this internally doon sa organization natin. If we understand and if we discovered na meron nangyayaring practice na ganito and we didn't report it, it is also a violation of us being a member of the IPO. Kasi the problem is hindi natin sinusuportahan yung IPO. That's why it didn't prosper. It didn't prosper because as mentioned last meeting, maraming gustong maging board members, maraming gustong magaling na sila yung mag-lead. Wherein we have different ideas kung paano gagawin. But as stated by, actually this is a resolution by PBRES, I think 39 adopted last 2019, I think. Um, it is very clear that we need to participate actively. We need to report this. Hindi way na wag natin suportahan. Our option is to report this and exhaust all remedies internally in our organization on how to correct this. And if we cannot resolve this inside our group, there are remedies outside the IPO. There's the PBRES, there's PRC. And if they cannot resolve this, these kinds of issues, we can go to courts naman. So meaning, there are due processes naman na we can apply with or practice. So, if, kapag hindi natin ito ginagawa, magpipikit mata tayo at magbubulag-bulagan, it's also a disservice as a member to the organization. Let me pass, kasi we have another argument. May I pass it to Miss Geraldine Gonzalez?
Wait lang, sir. Let's let Group 10 speak muna.
All right, all right.
So, Group 10, we'd like to hear your rebuttal or your thoughts on this ethical issue.
Yeah. So for our group, I think kami like we wouldn't support the IPO, but I would not as a whole. I mean, I would just focus on this issue itself. And I agree that appropriate complaints must be filed um, against the responsible members na may kaso against this issue. But we wouldn't support the way that things are being done because I mean we have to support IPO nga because it's mandated by our code of ethics, it's mandated by the RESA law. But we don't support. I don't think that we can tolerate something like this. So appropriate complaints must be filed to at least change the leadership if the leaders are the ones that are involved in something like this. For us kasi, an organization that represents the whole industry and an organization that's meant to professionalize and elevate our practice must not be tolerated when it comes to unethical practices because it should be the one setting the right example for all real estate service practitioners. So it should be the one leading the way and showing us how to perform our services with competence, integrity, and excellence. They must not use their power or the organization for their own protection and benefit. So supporting an IPO that is known to compromise ethics and is corruptible will normalize such unethical practices kasi. And it will also delay the progression of the industry, which is, I mean, corruption is pretty normal in the Philippines and a lot of organizations. So we think na, ayun nga, why won't we support this? It's because a huge part of the real estate service is anchored on trust. And so if we cannot create and sustain trustworthy professionals, how can our clients and fellow practitioners transact without having to look over their shoulders? Diba? I mean, that's just my take on it. Let me pass it back to your group.
Ma'am Geraldine, can you give your argument and rebuttal?
Um, Despite these acts, no, you should still support the IPO. In other aspects, because it is aimed to be good, and we cannot allow the acts of a few domino effect into the failure of the entire organization and even industry. Let's participate and not violate or tolerate illegal activities of IPO members. Siguro let's unite and build a goal that will enhance our profession. Kaya nga, may mga oath tayo eh. Meron tayong mga sinumpaan na profession. Kaya nga tayo tinawag na licensed broker. So dapat sa end pa lang natin, matuto tayong sumunod sa law. Huwag naman tayong tumulad sa iba na mali na nga yung ginagawa na gagayahin pa natin. John?
Yeah, back
Oh,
to you, Ralph, if you or Sir Erwin, if you have anything to say.
okay, for me naman, I will not support the IPO because it is clearly obvious that no resolution for this case because even the IPO board members are ignoring or tolerating colorum practices. Those IPO board members should be held to disciplinary action by not upholding to the ethical standards and responsibilities. Kaya in this case, if I had already encountered with these persons working with the said developer, knowing of the unethical practices, the IPO will be useless and it is better to just dissolve it if IPO board members showed abuse of power within the organizations. Okay, that's all. My rebuttal.
Okay, just to summarize, but Group 10 actually brought up a lot of good points because, of course, we are mandated by the code of ethics to support the IPO. But then in this case, for example, the IPO, the organization who was given the accreditation, is not doing their job. Why would you still support that specific organization? Why don't we just transfer to a different IPO? So there's a lot of ethical questions to be answered, and it's very vague what the code of ethics says of what should we support in itself. Is it the concept of an IPO or is it a specific IPO? But just to summarize why my group still thinks that we should still support the IPO as a concept and as a whole is because the concept in itself is still good and it still aims to solve a lot of the questions that we are facing right now. And it's just like, for example, problems with any organization, any government, even with the government or anything, there's always going to be problems. And we should still try to solve it within and not go against it. Because, of course, we know a lot of people now, they see a problem within a single organization or within the government. They already try to wash away the entire thing in itself. So, us, since we are professionals and we have to think in a deeper manner, our group believes that we should still we should still support the IPO as a concept because again,
Tatanggapin mo ba ang
No,
transaksyon
no,
nito?
no, no. Ang daming kliyente, Paul. Bakit ako magsusumiksik sa
Sayang
transaction
din
na yan
naman.
na
500 million din
no
yun.
way, hindi ganun ang presyo ko. Siguro ako, may dignidad ako na tao, no? So,
Okay.
na-value ko yung pinag-aaralan natin ngayon. So, kung ito-tolerate natin ang mga yan, hindi tayo matatapos sa issue na to.
Sir,
Diba? And Paul, alam mo ba pag tinolerate natin tong mga to, kung ako ang owner ng property at alam ko ikaw Paul wala kang license, pwede kong hindi ibigay yung commission mo. Anong hahabulin mo sa akin? Wala. Kahit saang korte tayo mapunta, wala kang makukuhang commission sa akin kung
Kaya
ako
nga
ang na owner. Pwede kong hindi
Teka,
ibigay yung commission mo.
kalma lang. Sa example lang ito, kaya nga nilagay ko na
Paul.
example, pinsan pa ng
Okay.
asawa mo. Kasi merong tatamaang familial relationship na kumbaga, para mas maging complicated kaunti.
Yeah.
Ako, personally,
That's my stand, Ma'am Karen.
Yeah, thank you. Can I hear from Group 2, Norbert?
Hello, ma'am. Good morning. In my humble opinion, ma'am, I am supporting yung IPO with sa mga transactions, but also at the same time, I'm also expecting that the IPO is not perfect. So I'll just act accordingly. Most likely, I would encourage or try to find out sa mga legitimate IPO members who are doing things the ethical way to transact with them instead of the IPO as a whole. So, yun lang po para sa akin.
Will you, ano na tayo dun sa case ni Paul Baez. Meron siyang malaking transaction, but the seller, on the seller side, the listing party is not licensed. You are the buying party. You are licensed. Will you proceed with the sale?
Sa akin, ma'am, I think I would ask the other party to get a licensed broker to transact with us. I will not proceed po.
So
Okay.
dadami na naman ang maghahati-hati.
Kasi kaya naman nila maghanap po. In my humble opinion po, kaya naman nila maghanap ng licensed broker to transact on their behalf so that everything will be legitimate. Kung if they want the transaction to push through, yun lang naman ang pakiusap ko sa kanila. Find, if you guys are not licensed, we'll ask to find somebody who can represent your party to, na license. Yun lang naman po eh. It's a simple thing. Kung gusto talaga, may paraan yan. Just try to get a licensed broker so that things will be, legal.
For group 3,
Ma'am,
who's the head of group 3, team leader of group 3?
yes, ma'am. Lovelyn po.
Go ahead, Lovely.
If I were the broker, yes, I will push through dun sa transaction, but I will educate din po yung kabilang side, yung colorum. I think naman madadaan naman yung sa magandang usapan, and when you explain naman na we have this rule na batas na to dapat sundin and meron din naman penalties. Tapos since hindi naman sila pwede na 50-50 nga kasi nga hindi naman sila licensed katulad ng sinabi ni Ralph. I think madadaan natin sa okay na usapan dun sa referral fee. And I think pag colorum kasi hindi lang siya nag-iisa, madami silang na may hearing fee. So, ayun ma'am. And kung sa provinces yon, yung katulad ng sample ni Paul, kung sa provinces, for me na makaka-close ng ganong kalaki, not bad na magbigay naman ng hearing fee doon sa mga referrers. So, para everybody happy. Ayun po.
Kaso, Lovelyn, I do not want a hearing fee. But
Yes.
this is a real scenario eh. So, the colorums, ayaw ko ng hearing fee. Ako nga ang listing broker eh. Diba the colorum will call themselves, I am the listing party. Ayoko ng let us hear from,
Miss, can I add?
Group 4.
Ano, Miss? Kasi since malaki nga yung pinag-uusapan natin na sales, for me, i-educate ko nga yung other party na malaki siya, and then mas malaking scope ng work yung gagawin. And then, this colorum naman, wala naman siyang gagawin sa transaction. And then, sabihin ko sa kanya na I'll give you a referral fee kasi na-introduce mo ako dun sa owner na yon. Pero 50-50, hindi ako papayag kasi yun nga, madami tayong pinagdaanan sa process, and yung work din na gagawin mo dahil sa sales na to is mas mabigat, mas madami. And then, most likely, hindi naman siya magiging saglitan na one-time deal lang eh. Kasi 'di ba kung real life situation nga, lupa, mas matagal talaga yung ipa-process. And then hindi naman siya knowledgeable, wala din siyang gagawin, tapos magkakaroon siya 50-50. To be fair, may referral fee lang siya. And then yung work na gagawin ko, and then makikita din naman niya na pinaghirapan ko talaga tong transaction na to, may ginawa talaga ako na to close this deal, and ginamit ko talaga yung kaalaman ko para ma-transfer, mabigay ko dun sa buyer ko. Kasi 'di ba, yung reputation mo din sa buyer mo is yung binibuild mo dito. And then kung masisira kasi kung hindi siya licensed, wala siyang alam, tapos nagre-represent siya sa owner side, most likely magkaka-problem dyan. Baka may mga chances na masilaw siya sa CGT, sa DST, and then kinuha niya yung pera. And then yung masisira ikaw sa buyer mo. So, sabihin ko talaga sa kanya, frankly, na hindi ko bibigay yung 50-50. Introduce mo ako sa owner. I will i-represent ko yung like direct na transaction. And then I'll stand na ako na yung nag-supervise dito sa transaction na to.
Yeah, but you cannot claim, Blessy, you cannot claim that you know more because you're a broker, right? Kung nangyari yan sa totoong buhay, ako as a colorum, hindi huwag ka makipag-transact sa akin. Di ba? That's the real world. Di ba? Ang dating sa akin ng mga broker, ang yayayabang nyo. Dami
Yes.
nasat-sat
Truth.
na.
Truth
You
yan, ma'am.
say a lot of things, but I have more experience than all of you. You're very young. Babata nyo pa nga eh. Kumpara sa akin, matanda na nga ako eh. Tumanda na nga ako sa field na to. No? So, do not educate me. Ako yung... Di ba? People don't like to be educated. You can say it in a nice way. Pero mas maraming broker. I started being a clorum. So, dami rin ganun. Mga pinangangaralan ako and all. Parang, ang dami yung sat-sat. Wala naman kayong benta. No? All the brokers that are under me before, since I am the marketing head, pero colorum ako, I didn't know anything about that law. Pero ako naman nakakabenta. Lahat ng broker wala kang benta eh. Naghihintay nga ng pagbaksak ng mangga. They are just waiting. Well, a lot of brokers are just waiting for the buyers to come in the site of development. Wala silang plano, wala silang lahat. Ako, Coloro, may plano nga ako eh. May plano ako, sinong pupuntahan ko and everything. You do a marketing plan. So what's the ethical thing to do? The ethical thing to do here is, it is not wrong. Siyempre, iisipin mo, benta to. Sinong mag-aano sa grasya? Who would want to let go of an opportunity? Diba? The real situation would be, none of us will say, ayoko ng pera. When you are faced with such a situation, all of you will think, gusto kong matuloy ito. Right? Yung magsasabi na ayokong ituloy, you are really, how do I say it? How do I say it kung ayoko ituloy? Kasi ako mismo, itutuloy ko eh. No? Itutuloy ko, but like what Norbert said, I would request that the colorum be represented by a broker. So sila yung maghati sa broker. Now, if that will not be, the request will not be followed, then you will not proceed with the sale because what the law states that makukulong ka, 'di ba? Kung may nagsumbong sa inyo, makukulong ka, and you are bound by your duties to uphold the law with your code of ethics. Yung sinasabi niyong isusumbong nyo, kung hindi naman natuloy yung transaction ano isusumbong mo? No? It is always a transacted case na pwede mo isumbong. Pero sino nagsusumbong? None. We hear a lot of stories na si ganyan nagkolorum. No? A lot of these cases are happening. Most especially ako, I'm Chinese, diba? There are so many brokerage firm with Chinese na branding along Makapagal. That paano sila nakaka-practice ng real estate sa Pilipinas? Why? When I started checking, they are represented by a Filipino broker. The firm is being represented by a Filipino broker, and that Filipino broker is paid for a fee. Binabayaran. Tapos under that Filipino, mga Chinese. Even the Chinese nga are not allowed to be accredited salesperson because Filipinos lang naman ang allowed. Right? So, they're also colorum. But, ang ginagawa, admin work. Kuno. Admin work. So, what is the ethical thing to do here? You request that the colorum be represented by a broker. Pero sasabihin nyo in such a way na hindi offensive, na hindi mo siya pinapangaralan. Kasi kung pinangaralan mo, di ba, relationships are built. You do not claim na, "Ay, hindi, ako yung ako yung mas magaling because lisensyado ako." Hindi. In real estate, even if I'm already a professor, I'm already, I close a lot of sales already. But pag may nami-meet akong kolorum na matatanda, I always would request and tell them, "Nay, pwede ba? Ganon, ganon, ganon. Pwede ba? Meron tayong broker na maggagabay sa inyo." Because they're the listing party, I'm the buying party. Right? Para 50-50 pa rin ang natin, kita. Pero kayo mag-usap ng broker who will represent you. And I will also guide her para hindi siya madehado dun sa listing broker niya na mag-represent sa kanya. Right? In our real estate world, it's always negotiation, communication of how we close it. Ang magagaling sa real estate, yung sobrang galing, walang nasasarado because ang yayayabang nila. They treat themselves as if they are God. In our real estate realm, in our real estate world, tayo yung lowest. Tayo yung nakikiusap, kung ikaw yung nakiusap, ikaw ang nakakasara. Kasi nakikiusap ka eh. Di ba? In everything, not just in real estate, in anything and everything, ikaw ang nakiusap, ikaw ang makakasara. Even in closing sale, in the BIR, makiusap ka, pumila ka, no? Pagbibigyan ka, mayabang ka, pues maghintay ka hanggang sa matapos ako. Up to the point that I'm ready to check your document. Your document will always be sa ilalim, never yan aangat. Mas magaling ka pa sa akin eh. Diba? So, every time I stepped in government offices, nakikiusap ako. Hindi ko sinasabing, 3 ang lisensya ko, 4 ang lisensya ko, na I will educate you. Never. You always would act as if you know nothing, yet you know a lot, and then makiusap and close the sale. In my sale in Boracay, it was a manang it was a colorum who introduced the property to me. And I requested that she be represented by a broker also from Boracay. So I had to look for a broker na i-represent siya. So it is me and the broker who were discussing together with the colorum. Kasi siya naman yung may hawak. How they shared in that commission, sila na ang bahala. But the commission was paid to the sharing of the commission was paid between me and the listing broker. Pero I made sure hindi rin mawawala si colorum. So that's how you close a sale. Because each and every one of us would want to have a sale, right? Pero sa tamang paraan, hindi yung sa gusto ko ng pera, Paul, gusto ko ng pera, by all means isasara ko. No, we don't do that because we have to uphold the law. Na when you took your oath of office, when you pass the board exam, you will have your oath of office. And one of your oath is to uphold the law and be a partner with your Pebres and the IPO. But I think the case of John and his team is, nawala tayo sa sa discussion. The discussion is, will you support the IPO, right, John?
Yes, ma'am. Despite the them tolerating colorum practices.
Oo, but your case kasi, medyo magulo eh. It's the board members who represent the IPO, not the IPO per se as a whole eh. So you don't look at the whole IPO, but you look at the personalities as members of the IPO. So do you support IPO? Yes, you should, because your oath of office is you support the IPO eh. So if it is the members, board members ka ang case mo no dyan, board
Yes,
members,
yes, yes, ma'am.
then what you do is you don't vote for those board members during the national elections. Kasi the board members' seat of office is yearly or 2 years depending on their bylaws. Pero parating may election yan eh. So, huwag nyo iboto yung mga ganyan. Diba? Para lang yan sa halalan eh. Diba? You will have your own candidates that you want to vote for. But as soon as a person is elected, let us say, letter A, or kunwari ako, I run as a president, hindi naman ako yung gusto mong boto, pero I won as a president, then all of you has to support me. So that uunlad yung IPO natin. Right? Hindi tayo yung kanya-kanyang partido. What is happening in the Philippines, diba? Nanalo na si President Duterte, ang daming galit sa kanya because of how he ran it. If you would sit as the president, would you have run it the same way as he ran it? All of us can just react to his action. But what we should all do as Filipinos is support the elected officer so that lahat tayo sabay-sabay uunlad. Diba? That is how it is done. Not because I wanted. Sino ba kalaban ni President Duterte?
Mar Rojas, ma'am.
Mar Rojas.
Yeah,
For
2016.
example, I wanted Mar Rojas, tatalo siya. I will continue on cursing, no? Or looking at the bad things that the President Duterte had done. Hindi, dapat what we have to do is support the elected officer so that sabay-sabay tayong umunlad. Not pulling di ba Filipinos magaling tayo sa ganyan? Pulling each other's feet down. Kasi mga inggitero tayo eh. Pangalawa, we are all very critical of another person, which is a very bad trait. Ako, I recognize that trait eh. Pintasera ako to the maximum level. No? Magaling yan, ano ko eh, that is one of my traits na backstabbing kahit kadugo. Backstabbing ba yun? It is we are more of, we never looked at the good side of a person. We always look at the, yung small dot, yung mali na isang tao, yan ang we look at that small dot. We're very critical nga eh of, ako as a person I notice that is one of my traits na mamintas. Magaling ako eh. Sa kakapintas ko nga sa ipin ng daughter ko, naging perfect. No? Because I'm very critical, which is a wrong trait. You recognize you're wrong, then you improve it, you become a better person. Don't keep on staying in that wrong character. So, yung question ni John and your team is you support the IPO pa rin because that is a wrongdoing of a board member. And all of us are mandated to support the IPO. Kung nagkamali yung board member, let us not vote for that board member again. Huwag natin huwag natin i-continue na most of us will not even participate in the election eh. Tapos kung na-elect na yun, ayaw mo, tsaka ka magsasalita. Right? Parang my children, I force them to be, to line up sa, sa COMELEC. They were so angry. What type of COMELEC is this, mom? ang haba-haba raw ng pila. And also, I also did the same thing when I was younger. So, you want to elect your leaders, go and do your duties. Kasi 'di ba yung Comelec ang haba nga ng pila. So the second I went with my children nag-ano kami talaga. You have to line up. My son, ayaw niya mag-line up. Kaya mga lalaki nakakabuisit eh. No patience, ang haba-haba raw. So I had to ask yung namin, yung house help, magpila na rin kayo para magboto rin kayo. Kasi di ba the house help gusto nila sa probinsya nila. But then again, they're staying with you. So because of the COVID situation, they have to be in the same place as you are. Kasi anak ko, yan yung pinaka-impatient. Ayaw niya magpila. I do not know with you. My son is 29. Ikaw, Ralph, how old are you? You seem very young.
I'm 27, Miss Karen.
Pumila ka ba?
Yeah, before. Sa Taguig, I voted last election, so I don't have to register na.
Imagine, my son did not vote.
Pero mahaba nga, Miss Karen. Mahaba talaga yung pila. Ganun talaga.
Pila, tapos ayaw na niyang pumila kasi ang haba-haba raw. I-instruct na lang daw niya yung driver namin, ito ang i-boto mo. Sabi ko, kanya-kanyang boto yan eh. You cannot even tell your aide, no, or your house help, itong boto mo. Because that is their right to vote for who they want to vote. So let us go to group number 10.
I'll just share screen, Miss Karen. Hold on. Bye. Are you ready?
Oh, yes.
Wait. Wait lang. Sorry. Go ahead, Maya.
One moment. Did Garcia, pick John? Garcia Norman? He's part of your team, right? John?
No, ma'am.
He's absent?
He's not part of my team.
He's not part of your team? The group before? Dati ka? Alright.
Can
Okay.
I proceed po, ma'am?
Okay. Go
Ayun,
ahead.
good morning, Prof. Karen and classmates. I am Myla Medina, the team captain of Group 10, and we are the affirmative side for this case regarding the code of ethics and responsibilities of the practitioner to the IPO. So while creating our topic last week, we had difficulty on how to present a case that is happening in real life that involves an IPO. So with that being said, this is our case scenario, and we hope that after this discussion, we all understand and appreciate the importance of IPO in our real estate service practice. So, our case study is a complaint was filed against an IPO member about unethical practices such as marketing listings owned by other brokers without authorization and also fraudulently misrepresenting the details of the properties that he is selling. It so happens that the accused party is also working under the real estate brokerage and consultancy firm of one of the incumbent board members of the IPO. So, as one of the functions of the IPO is to arbitrate and mediate between disputes, should the board member be deprived of his part and function to decide on the case. So, um, for me, um, the main function of the IPO is to uh, arbitrate and mediate between disputes. So in this situation, if the board member should proceed with this unethical mediation, the integrity of the IPO will be put in jeopardy. That affects the member and the whole organization. So according to the preamble of the Code of Ethics, the real estate service practice should be an honorable profession with all the practitioners to be technically competent, responsible, and respected professionals nationally and globally. So therefore, the board member shall be respectively deprived of his part and function to decide on the case stated. The practitioner who filed the complaint was just doing his or her part to the IPO as a member of the organization. So let's hear from the other group.
Miss Eloisa. Miss
Yes,
Eloisa. Yes,
yes.
go ahead. I'll go ahead if Miss Eloisa is not here. So for our group stand on this case, we believe. Wait, hold on. We believe that that the board member should exercise his duty and mediate the dispute. Our group deems that the act of removing him or his responsibility over the assumption that he might be directly or involved or they might be having a conflict of interest can be considered forestalling or parang inuunahan mo na eh. It's not even there yet. We don't even know yet if they are if they are if they will be professional because of course these persons are duly elected, and when the fact is nothing is yet proven, we should give them the person the chance to professionally handle the case. So that is our group stand on this case study, to allow the duly elected person to still arbitrate the case, since sila naman yung elected and it is their responsibility to exercise the that level of since they're considered the experts on these things, we should allow them to handle the case.
Thank you, John. For me though, sorry, is my screen still sharing? I think I canceled it.
It's still sharing.
Okay, good. So, well, for me, I think you make a good point. Pero I think you should be deprived of any participation, at in this specific case because yun nga, there's a potential conflict of interest. And even if, let's say, na pinapangunahan siya, um, parang it's better to not leave it to chance that the results of a dispute like this can be manipulated or compromised. Because, well, first and foremost, the IPO was formed to be an organization that, that protects the collective interest of all real estate service practitioners. And I think that the participation of the board member in this case can compromise the members all of the members' trust and the fair and ethical ruling of this case in dispute. The professionalization of the real estate service practice will not advance and grow to its highest potential if we allow the chance for it to be poisoned with potential corruption, and if the collective interest of the industry as a whole is not protected. In this case, kasi since kunyari, the board member nga, it's his brokerage, right? So it's his brokerage and consultancy firm. So, o- what if he chooses to protect the interest of his firm rather than the collective interest of the IPO? So there are other way. Parang it's just one person naman that we're talking about, and I think that the other board members can mediate. The other board members who are not directly involved with the complainant can mediate in this case instead of him having to participate.
Miss Blessy, can you add to our group's argument?
Yeah, tama yung sinabi ni John. So, first of all, ulitin ko lang, first of all, elected nga tong person na to. And then, for you to be elected in that, and nandyan ka sa position na yan, your credentials, yung pag-file mo to be elected is, um, is known ka na credible ka dyan sa position na yan. And then second, the intention of IPO is to build a better organization for real estate practitioner, to build network, to build practicing field. So this kind of scenario would be fixed through dialogues, through communications, and from dialogues. And if you continue to put so much pressure dun sa elected, we will not build a better organization. We must, but we also need to trust these board members. So we need to respect the kung sino ba yung elected. So we cannot avoid conflict within our organization, like in other professional fields. And itong mga gantong scenario, na pag-uusapan naman siya, we have our own interests, but we must perform our realistic practices in accordance with guidelines established by IPO.
In my stand in this case, because we are in the affirmative side, for the purpose of just and fairness, yes, I am pro that the IPO board member should be denied to become part of the mediation or arbitration process because it might cause a conflict or negative impact on the resolution of the case, and being an IPO BM also constitute power and influence in the organization. So since the accused is working under the same roof with the IPO board member, might as well the IPO board member prove that he or she has no knowledge about the unethical practices of the accused and exercise at all times the professional, professionalism and integrity.
I'll give my closing remarks. No? So for our group, we believe that the checks and balances and the person's professionalism should be enough to allow the person to participate in the case, since pre-deciding his role in the case does more harm towards the integrity of the entire IPO, because it just shows everyone na the board members there aren't professional enough to handle the case. Let's give it to someone else. It's like you're losing faith in the board member, and you're losing faith in the person that he will not handle the case properly just because may ano siya, he has some connections to the case. So for our group, since we are in this stance, we need to show the public and the industry as a whole na we don't have fragile professionalism and integrity. Na even though we are in this level of mediation, now we can still allow the person to have the chance to handle the case, because we know that they are professional and they will handle the case in with their utmost integrity. So that's our closing remarks for my group.
For my group naman, I mean, I guess you make very good points, pero for us, we can't leave something like this to chance. And in this case, in this specific case study, we're only talking about one board member, and I think that the arbitration can be handled by the other board members. Because for us, the board members or leaders of the IPO must be impartial with arbitration, with their relationships with real estate service practitioners. So I think that it's a higher priority for the integrity of the case to be protected, or the fair ruling of the case to be protected. So if we leave it to chance and the rulings can be manipulated, then the real estate service practitioners will not have um or the ones that are involved in the case also. Kunyari yung the party who doesn't have this relationship with the board member, um, they won't have the confidence to file complaints and call out unethical practices, and so the more that the practice of the real estate service in the Philippines will not progress. So I guess that sums up my group stand also. Group mates, do you have anything to add, by the way? None.
I know. I think you said it all.
Can I
Sorry.
hear from the others? Can I hear from Paul?
Yes, ma'am. Teka, ma'am. Ay, sorry, ma'am. Yun sa case. Trabaho naman yun ng IPO. Tama naman na naniniwala ako
Hello?
na impartial naman yung board. And besides, halimbawa na kung may kaso talaga at may lawyers, most likely kung halimbawa makikitaan naman ng lawyers yan ng grounds na pwede nilang iakyat sa mas mataas kasi nga may ganitong relationship or dun sa IPO, yung isang magde-decide, isang board member, siya din naman yung may kaso, yung ganun man.
How about you,
Pero
Godot?
walang choice ang IPO, talagang sila pa rin ang unang maglilitis.
So ano yung sa'yo, Paul? Si Aipo ang, kasi ang question niya is arbitrate and mediate
Kung tatanggalan
ng powers yung board
power ng
member,
IPO, yes po.
yung board member na
Mag-decide or maglitis.
How about you po? So sa'yo, pwede siyang mag-decide yung board member na
Yes
yan.
po.
How about
Yes
you,
po.
Godo?
Can I give my statement, ma'am?
Yeah, Bismarck? All right. Go ahead, Bismarck.
Yes, ma'am. For me, ma'am, agree po ako dun sa side ni Ralph at ni Sir Rene that to preserve the integrity of the IPO, yung board member na yun, ma'am, dapat po hindi siya makiparticipate in that case kasi nga po, siya mismo yung involved to preserve the integrity, then to para po hindi siya makapag-influence with his own case kasi po may possibility na may part nung case na may mawala na records to preserve the records. And at the same time po, for me, kailangan po mag-abstain siya doon sa voting po nung case niya mismo. Yun na po.
Okay. How about you, one moment ha. Lawrence Sarmiento.
Hello po, ma'am. Yes po.
What is your position to this problem?
Kaya kahit pansamantalang kaibigan lang dahil nandiyan ka sa Lucena.
Ay, nawala pala yung pag-share ko.
Maging wise ka naman, maging responsible ka.
You don't have to show the kasi you have So what is your position, Lawrence?
Ma'am, ano po, nag-ano na po kami nakaraan po, ma'am. Nag po ako kasali po.
Nag-ano?
Yung nag-present din po, ma'am. Yung group 6.
Oh. That's group 10 already. So what is your position to this case?
Ma'am, hindi pa po ako kasali po sa ano po namin. Wala po ako doon sa GC po namin, ma'am. Hindi po ako nakapag ano po.
Ano 'yon? Are you attending 2 classes at the same time?
No po, ma'am.
So, you're not listening to the case presentation?
Nakikinig po, ma'am.
So what's your position nga? How about you, Renzi Granados?
Yes, miss.
Yes.
Ay, ako po ba?
Yeah.
Ay, Renzi.
Yes, Renzi Granados.
Mami, yung question po kung okay lang ba mag-arbitrate yung IPO member naka-group din ng nirereklamo?
Oo.
Wait lang po.
Miss Karen, can I go first? This is Tin Reyes.
Oh, go ahead, Tin.
Okay, my position would be, of course, I don't agree for the accused one, or the one that is part of the case. I don't agree for that IPO member to be an arbitrator, because usually, no, for me, a common sense would dictate that the person accused, or part of the accused party, they could be the defendants of their case. Pero they could never be the arbitrator for it to be balanced, no. So, yon. So there should be a pro, a con, and then there should be somewhere in the middle. So I agree that IPO, although there are some corrupt IPO members, or those that are in the wrong, they don't represent the entire IPO and what it stands for. So there are members that can be chosen to be to do the arbitrary function. That's for me.
Right, that's correct, no? Um, we don't, the problem presented is there is one IPO member, there is a member of his team or his brokerage that is working under his brokerage firm that did a wrongdoing. And should he be a party to the case that is presented for the IPO to mediate on, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So the right thing to do is that board member has to decline. Kasi case, it's against the firm of which he is of which the complaint is against, right? So the right thing is siya mismo mag-decline to hear the case out or to mediate on the case, because his firm is part of the party to the complaint, because his staff, tama ba? That is the complaint is against his staff who is working under his firm. So that the right thing, if you are a party to the complaint, you don't accept the assignment to mediate. Of course, magkakaroon ng bahid yan. So the ethical thing to do is, there are so many board members there. Not all the board members should decide on the case anyways. It should just be a part of the team to, it is just a part of the board to mediate, or listen to the case. Now, the code of ethics to the IPO is, if there is a dispute between parties, two brokers, two brokers that are fighting for monetary issues, the right thing to do is raise this up in the organization. So if there is still, we don't have an IPO right now, raise it up in the organization that you belong to. So I belong to PAREB. So I have to file the complaint. I represent the Quezon City North Realty Board. So I filed a case against the person in my own board. But if the other party belongs to, for example, Manila Board, which is another, it's not a chapter, but another board within PAREB, then we raise this issue within the National Board of PAREB, in the grievance committee of the National Board of PAREB. Our case cannot be resolved through the grievance committee. Then we raise this up in the RTC, in the courts of law already. Or hindi pa muna sa court of law, I raise this up first sa PEBRES. I'll file a complaint against the party in PEBRES. PEBRES cannot solve it, then we elevate it now to the higher authority, which is the courts already. That is the code of ethics for the associations or IPO. Also, as a member, for example, I'm a member of pare, I'm running for a position this year in the national elections as a national director. I cannot naman go and do electioneering by giving gifts, monetary gifts, parang vote buying. I cannot do that. Going to each and every board and asking for their vote for me by giving them, oh, I am giving you 50,000 for your whatever program your organization has. For example, I will go to North Luzon in Batangas board. Ito donation ko sa inyo para sa any program that your board could have. When in fact, I know that election time na eh. This coming November, may election eh. So it's a form of vote buying. Vote buying, right? To be popular, I would say, oh, I'm going to donate, right? I've served the board for 4 years in the national. But on my, I think the 6th year, I tried to run as the national president. Pero I lost. You know, I think I lost because I'm half-hearted. I was thinking, should I run? So many people were egging me to run. Eh kaso within the organization, so many negativity. Parang may parties. I'm not part of any party. I represent me, the betterment of the organization. So if there are, because iba in any organization, maraming matatanda na. If there are so many senior, they would always feel they know all about the organization. My thinking is nobody is better, everybody is better than me. I'm just part of a team. There is no I in the word team, right? So all the people who are younger than me are better than me. Their ideas must be better than me. Because mas bagong ideas ng people who are younger. No? Everybody who's younger than me, I think I'm the oldest in your class. I'm already in my 50s. I will not say 50 something. I'm 50 plus. I do not want to say because I stopped counting at the age of 28. Hindi na tumanda. I never added. Hindi nga ako nag-29. I stopped counting at 28. So all of you would have better ideas than me. And I respect that. I never claimed I'm the best of all. So I was happy when I lost because you're giving your services for free. Tapos I was thinking, ba't ang daming away? The more you are involved in our organization, the more you would know but, what are the cases that they are talking about. It doesn't even, it will not empower me as a broker. I do not want to belong to any warring parties. Parang I'm in the middle of two parties that are fighting. Ito may cause, ito may cause. Eh, yung idea ko, what the, di ba, disputes are always because of pride. So I felt both have so many pride that I don't want to belong to. So I was haphazard. I was half-hearted. Everybody was doing the, alam mo, shaking of hands. So, but why are they shaking their hands? Parang totoong politiko. Kaya ako, I don't do that. I will never sell myself out by telling people, shaking their hands and telling them to vote for me. I'll never do that. So I knew I will not win because I am not a party who is willing to do that. Ayokong mag-shake hands. Kung manalo ka, okay, nanalo ka, then you serve. No? But I was not in for that. No? So I think I was the only person not shaking their hands and everybody was just looking for me. O nasan na si Karen? Because nagtago nga ako sa kwarto. Sabi ko, oh my God, I do not want to do that. I do not want to go around and mingle. It's not my personality. So, you want to vote for me? Go ahead and vote. You do not want to vote for me? Go ahead, do not vote. Because at the end, I believe that it's always the will of God that puts you in a position. No? Anyway, kung hindi ka nanalo, hindi ka magtatrabaho ng libre. So, when I lost, I ordered a lot of food and celebrated and ate and then slept. Kasi that means that I will be able to sell more, because if you're with the organization, the responsibility. When I do something, I'm locked in. I locked in, and I made sure the term given to me, I have to be successful. I have to have a program. I'm very square as a person. I'm very square. I have to know what I have to do, and I always put my mind into whatever I want to do, and I have to close it. If I don't close it, I will not stop. So that's my personality, the A personality. And um, and with the code of ethics, it states that you don't do electioneering. You have to have camaraderie, support each other, and if there are cases against each other, you talk it out. Sa real estate, walang ganun. Walang talk it out. Yabangan eh. Diba? Ako si ganyan. Ito yung pangalan ko, nakakabit how many letters after my name, how many what are my achievements, lahat ilalagay. Minsan nga, mas mahaba pa yung description of the name over the name na ang kaliit-liit eh. Diba? And that would make you, if your disposition would be that, then you'll never succeed. Or if you succeed, you're only up to there because you do not have a teachable heart already. And you are so mayabang that you look at yourself as the ultimate god of real estate already. So you'll never grow. As a broker, as a appraiser, as a consultant, I always, when I'm out in the field, I always have the heart of a teachable. I'm always the student. I'm never the professor because I want to close the sale. Kayo na ang magaling. Lahat ng real estate consultant na mayayabang, kayo na ang magaling. Pero sa akin the assignment is mine. Kayo na lang ang magaling, kayo na magturo, kayo na maglahat. Then I'll hire your services, but I close it. I will be the one to close the deal. Because as you grow older, as you have more titles to your name, you become so proud. You become so mayabang. And when that happens, God will not bless you with any sale because you already God. You already feel like you're God. So, as a broker, no, in the next year, you will become brokers. No, we will all be co-equal. No? First amongst equal lang, I came in first, but later on, you'll all be my colleagues in the real estate. I pray that you'll all be blessed with being a real estate broker, and we will be in the same playing field. We will all be in the same playground, wherein all of us will be earning a lot of money, right? So that ends our discussion. Very nice discussion, no? Very nice scenario given by Paul. Napaisip rin ako, Paul, kung itutuloy ko o hindi. Siyempre, who doesn't like the money? Who doesn't like a blessing? But we do it the right way, how to be blessed. Now, let us go to the discussion of next week. You will have an exam on 142, not 141. I'd like to ask this, no? For quiz number 2, Lawrence, were you able to take the exam? Sarmiento? Lawrence
Hello po,
Sarmiento?
ma'am. Yes po, ma'am. Opo.
Wala kang grade eh. Can you screenshot and email to me? The email sent to you? I released the grade.
Ano pong subject? Ano pong, ma'am, yung...
Code of Ethics.
Code of Ethics. Oh, wait, ma'am.
And Ralph Reyes?
Code of Ethics.
Ralph, did you take the exam, quiz 2?
Yes, Miss Karen. I have my results also.
You have your results. Can you screenshot lang and email to me?
This is the 142 midterm exam.
No, it's the quiz 2.
Quiz 2.
Quiz 2 Code of Ethics.
I'll look for it lang, Miss Karen.
Yeah. Just email na lang.
Okay.
Okay, let us go to the discussion of property ownership. Property ownership is the subject number 3. Since I'm very happy with your video, I'll share with you my notes. The notes that I prepared for myself and then QCRB when I was the president.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Fundamentals of property ownership. What is the concept of property ownership? A property may be the real estate, which is the land, buildings, or the real property. When you say real estate, no, it is the tangible. When you say real property, it is the intangible. No? The real estate as well as the what are the intangible? The intangible will be the rights, no? The rights, the patent, no? And the tangible will be the land and the buildings. What is ownership? Ownership is the rights that is included in the ownership. The fee simple is the highest form of ownership, which includes the bundle of rights. Think of the bundle of rights as a uh, one moment, ha. Think of the bundle of rights as a pickup sticks. But the pickup sticks, when you hold on it together, maraming sticks. So these sticks would represent the rights. But if you take out one of the rights, di ba the sticks will still are still all together. So that is how bundle of rights are illustrated here. The bundle of rights will include the right to possess the property, the right for the owner to use and enjoy the property, the rights to the fruits and ownership of the property, the right to the products of the soil, which is the natural fruits, one moment, ha. The rights of the fruits would have the natural fruits and the civil fruits. The natural fruits are uh, the products of the soil, while the civil fruits would be the income, rental income. And the cultivation of labor will be the industrial fruit. The right to dispose the property, which is to sell, to donate, to assign, or to exchange, or to right to recover the property if it is being uh, if the property is titled with informal settlers. Or even the right to not do anything about it. So these are the rights, bundle of rights. A real estate would refer to the land and improvements thereon. Estate would mean the degree of the owner's interest in the land. While the real property would intangible, intangible. Real estate is the tangible. What are the basic types of estates? The freehold ownership is backed by title, which includes the fee simple, the absolute unrestricted estate in perpetuity, the fee tail designed to pass on to your heirs, and the fee life estate for the ownership is for as long as the grantee is alive. If it is less than freehold, So there's a freehold and less than freehold. Less than freehold, it is a limited possession, or an estate for years. If it is leased under the civil code, maximum years is 99. If it is tenancy, leases or rentals period may be specified. If not, the leaser may terminate anytime at will. What are the kinds of ownership? There's the sole ownership and a co-ownership. The sole ownership benefits and property interests are undivided, the whole property interest. When it's a co-ownership, benefits are presented in proportion to co-owners. So, can there be a co-ownership on a single property? Can a single title, uh, can there be more than one owner in a title? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can. So how do you sell a property with such, with co-ownership? How do you do that? How do you dispose a property with co-ownership? For example, title 12345, owners are Karen L. Uy, Godo, uh, Ralph Richard Reyes, Tin Reyes, and Norbert Binag. 5 of us. How do we sell the property if ownership is 5 of us who are not related to each other? Can that be, can we have a property titled under 5 names who are not at all uh, related to each other?
Yes po, ma'am.
Yes, Norbert? Yes. So if pwede, how do you dispose of the property if one of us, for example, ako, I want to sell my share. So if we are 5 of us, it means I have 20% share. I want to sell my 20% share. Can I do that?
Sa experience ko, I think you can sell yung share mo sa co-owners mo.
And what if my co-owners doesn't want to buy it? None of you have the money to buy my share.
Isi-split po yung title, ma'am. Based on the number of shares, isi-split na lang.
Paano nga? How? You split it. Ako lang ang magsisell. And there's just one title. You co-own it. So, how do you split the title?
Sa akin, ma'am, I'm not sure if this is correct, ma'am. So maybe kapag 5 ang owners, pwede din sila mag-form ng corporation and then name the title to that corporation.
It's not
Tapos, okay. If
it is under, the title is under the name of Karen Uy, Ralph Reyes, Tim Reyes, Godo, and Norbert Binag.
Miss Karen?
Yes, Tim.
Yes, maybe a suggestion would be to to apply for partition first.
How do you do the partition? It's a square lot. How do you do the partition? For example, it's a square lot. It's 500 square meters, and the frontage is 20 meters. How do you divide that? So, we will divide the frontage.
Kasi it depends kasi actually. Oo, with parang ano na yan sa pag-uusapan na yan how they divide the property. So it really depends on the discussed terms beforehand. Pero in order to do that, there has to be a geodetic engineer to be able to partition.
One moment, I'll just have a pee break,
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Miss Karen.
So let's go back to the discussion. So, what is that again, Tin?
Yeah, was mentioning earlier, ma'am, na if ever there has to be an internal arrangement from the start. Kasi I know co-ownership can get very messy lalo na if it's a small lot. I mean, who gets the frontage, who gets what, and ganyan. So there has to be, if ever they can't settle on something, dapat from the start they should have already partitioned the property. So they should have separate titles.
Yeah.
Miss Karen, may I try?
For example, there is none. So I'll give you a live case na lang. It is 10,000, 15,000 square meter, but there are 6 owners. So can we subdivide? There is no partition to lot. It's just one title. Yes,
Miss Karen, may I try? Bagsik po.
yeah.
If there's only one title and several owners po, if one owner would like to sell it, all of the owners should sign on the contract. And the partition, yung equivalent lang nung gusto magbenta should be equal to all the owners.
I didn't get it. Can you say
Okay.
it?
If there's one parcel of lot, tas maraming owners po, if one of the owners would like to sell, kailangan lahat ng owners will sign on the contract. And then, on the portion na gusto lang magbenta, all owners should have equal, divided equally yung kanyang partition. So kung halimbawa 5 kayo, 20% lang yung pwede mong ibenta doon sa portion mo. And everybody should sign or in agreement to sell.
What if ayaw ni Norbert magbenta?
Kung hindi po agreeable yung isa, hindi mabebenta.
So that's the scenario would be the 5 of you have to agree to sell if it is co-owner. So first you would sell to the co-owners. So if we're 5 owners, I want to sell my share. I have to sell my share now to the 4 other co-owners in the title. If in the case that none of the 4 would want to purchase, then I cannot sell. It has to have a simultaneous sale. 5 of you have to agree to sell. Then you can transact with the sale. Because the title has to just be one. Or you sell, if I want to sell to for example, ako, Karen, would want to sell to Rawen. So, if the 4 other parties would agree for Karen to sell to Rawen, then I can sell. But if they don't, I cannot sell at all. But again, there would be no buyer who would want to buy a share na 20% lang, right? Right?
Yes.
So, what has to be done is the 5 co-owners have to agree to selling the property. How do you effect the sale? Simultaneous. So within simultaneous, you have to do the sale simultaneously within the same day, so that the title can be transferred to the new owner. That the five names co-owners in the title will agree. Now, can the prices be different from each other? There is one buyer, so 5 co-owners selling to one new buyer. How can you effect the sale? Anyone?
Yes po, ma'am. Sorry. Si Brent po.
Yeah, go ahead, Norbert.
Depende po sa kung anong ibebenta sa property. So, iba yung value ng property sa frontage versus sa likod niya, ma'am.
Wala eh. There is no frontage. It's just one title. It's not partition. The partition is just a percentage.
It should be one price lang po for the entire lot.
It should be one price.
The owner should agree kung ano yung presyo nila na ibebenta. Kasi ma'am, isang title lang.
Ma'am,
Nag-iisang
dapat po
title, ma'am, kaya
ipapreho.
pareho yung presyo lang, ma'am. Oo. Isang lot naman kasi yun. Hindi pa na-subdivide, ma'am.
Ma'am, for me, we need to appraise the property. So, sa lima kami po lahat magkakaroon po ng idea kung magkano talaga yung price.
Yes, meron ng each of you would find your own appraiser to appraise, right? But my question would be, should how do you sell it? Diba? I said earlier that you have to sell simultaneously. All of you have to agree to sell. So now you've all agreed to sell. The price should be just one price. Or can I say I want a higher price?
Ma'am, pare-pareho po. Pare-pareho po yung price kasi iisang lote pa lang naman yon, hindi pa na-subdivide.
How about the others?
Yes, Miss Karen. Same lang. They also, just in the same way that they have to agree, that they all have to agree to sell, they also all have to agree on what price to sell.
Oo.
Ah,
How about the others?
Silva po, ma'am. Ma'am, tingin ko po, ma'am, pwedeng taasan yung ibang partition, ma'am. Pwedeng mas mataas yung selling point niya, selling price niya. Kasi iba-iba naman din po yung buyer. Pangalawa, magkaroon na lang siya ng non-disclosure agreement para na sa ganun hindi magkasilipan doon sa mga bagong bibili ng property.
No,
So,
it's just one buyer dyan eh.
one buyer po.
Oo, you cannot naman have a lot of buyers in with one title. There's just one title. There's just one title. Co-ownership. Co-ownership meaning,
Oo nga pala.
oo, di ba, percentage ownership lang. Kasi co-ownership.
Ma'am Karen Fry, Sarangaya.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Sa ma'am, in reality kasi same scenario sa husband ko, 9 siblings sila. So sa property na namanan nila, siyam yung pangalan doon sa title. So every ma'am, every year may meeting sila, pinapa-appraise nila lahat ng mga lots kung magkano ang value. So they will agree kung magkano yung price for this commercial lot, for this agricultural land. Tapos they will come up, ito yung price na dapat ibenta at kung ano yung price na para lang kung ano yung commission na para lang kay broker, kasi maraming broker na nagtataas ba ng price. So inagree nila na hanggang dito lang yung ceiling na dapat i-add ni broker. Lahat ng 9 siblings, they agree on the same price through dun sa appraise na ginawa ng appraiser.
Yeah, but that's the scenario you are seeing. It's siblings. This one is co-ownership wherein the owners are not related to each other.
Maybe it's just the same, ma'am. Dapat pa-appraise nila and they would agree dun sa price na dapat ibenta dun sa buyer, kasi mahirap na iba-ibang price ang ibibigay nila. Hindi rin mabebenta yung property kung mag-aaway sila kung anong price ang dapat ibigay.
How about the others?
Ma'am Rawin po, I think it should be sold the same at the same price kasi since although hindi naman sila related to each other, the co-owners, hindi pa naman po nasusubdivide, so technically the lot should be as one. So pag yung price naman po, it should be agreed upon by the co-owners kung magkano po. And then anyways, pipirma naman po sila doon sa conveyance later. So dun po, I think it should be sold as a whole. Yung price po, pare-parehas.
You, Rowan? Can I hear from the others?
Ma'am, sorry, i-add ko lang po, ma'am. Pag ito, ma'am, kunwari for example, single owner lang siya, tapos nagkaroon ng co-owner, tapos nagkaroon ng co-owner, ang magiging sharing nito, ma'am, kung sino yung pinakanaunang may-ari nito, siya yung parang may rights na mas may taas yung value ng property na makukuha niya, or siya yung may rights na magkano niya pwedeng ibenta to since siya yung mas nauna dun sa co-ownership.
John, hindi naman natin malalaman sinong nauna eh. Kasi the title would just state the 5 of us as owners.
Ayun lang. Ayun.
Wala naman nakasulat sila pinabili. The document will just state when the date of the inscription of the sale. Because there is just one title. How about you, Blessy? Madlang Bayan. Leslie. Madlang Bayan. Not here.
Ma'am, try.
Ma'am Granada.
Ma'am, yun po Madlang Bayan.
Yes, go. Geraldine.
Ma'am, try ko lang po. Ma'am, siguro majority of the vote kung magkano nila ibebenta. Kasi kung 5 sila, 3 sa kanila agree na mas higher ang pagbenta. Yung dalawa ay okay naman na hindi ganun kataas. Siguro majority of the votes po nung 5 na owner.
Okay. How about you?
Miss Karen, tinawag niyo po ako, ma'am, Madlang Bayan.
No, si Blessy ang tinawag ko.
Nag-CR po kasi, ma'am. Sorry po.
Alright. It's okay. Maria Ramona del Rosario.
Hi, ma'am. Yes. With my answer to the question, since initially po, all have the first condition for that title, for that property to be able to be sold by 5 owners and under one title is all of them have to agree to sell. And the other key point or keyword that you said was simultaneous. So with those keywords, all have to agree to sell and simultaneous, it also will ripple to them agreeing to the same amount in terms of selling price.
So you're saying
it has to be a unified decision. It has to be a unified decision.
Okay. How about you,
Yes,
Lawrence Sarmiento?
Sa akin naman po, ma'am, same lang din po nung sabi po ni ma'am po na kailangan po mapag-usapan po kung magkano po. Kunyari, example, sa part po nung isa, 30%, then sa kabila naman is 70, ganun po. Based on mapag-uusapan po sa akin. Yun din po yung sa akin, ma'am.
I don't understand. Ano yung sabi mo?
Di ba, ma'am?
The scenario, there are 5 owners eh. Diba? 5 sa isang titulo.
Opo. Kumbaga based po sa mapag-uusapan po ng, di ba po dahil nga share po sila, unified po, kumbaga isang titulo pero dalawa po or 3 yung nakapangalan. Based po sa...
My example, it's 5.
Opo.
Us, that we don't really know each other.
Kung ganun po, in that case po, ma'am, it will divide at sa 5 po. So 20% sa parties po na yun. Sa tigi-tigi 20% po sila ng shares po.
Again, Lawrence, nasabi ko na nga na 20% each. So the answer to this question would be, since 5 of us are not related to each other, I don't really know Norbert. Can you put your mic on mute, Lawrence?
Yes po, ma'am, ulit. Sorry po. Medyo...
Mic on mute.
Hello po.
Put your mic on mute. Please mute yourself. So if there are 5 owners, then the sale has to be simultaneous with the 5 owners, but not necessarily mean that you have to have the same price. So the broker has to go and discuss with these 5 owners and negotiate for the price. It does not necessarily mean that I have to have the same price as the selling price of Norbert and Godot, Tin, and Ralph. For example, ako yung pinakamayabang. I do not need the money. So kailangan ako ligawan ng broker for me to convince me to be able to sell. You get the point? Do you get the point, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. It does not necessarily mean that I have to have the same price, selling price. The broker on this case has to negotiate with these 5 owners, not revealing, of course, the price that I have to buy from Norbert, the price I have to buy from Godot, the price I have to buy from the Teen, and the price I have to buy from Ralph. Even if I know that the price, for example, the selling price that Godot wants is 20,000. Si Norbert wanted 25,000. Teen wanted 20,000. Ralph wanted 30,000. No? Ako, I don't want to sell because I do not want, I'm not in need of that money. So I will demand 100,000 or even 200,000 because I do not want to sell. So it is up to the broker to negotiate for that price for the complete sale of that property since my buyer wants that property. You get the point? So it does not necessarily mean that there should be an appraised value. No, because again, the value to a specific person is what is the use of that property to that person. Eh? So value would be very relative here, right? If I really wanted that property and one of the co-owners would demand a very high price, it is now up to the broker and the buyer to accept that selling price or not to be able to close the sale. If that property would be of value to me, then I would grab the price that the co-owner is asking for. Get the point? But the
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, but the point here is you have to close the sale all at the same time. Why? Because there is just one property. There is just one title to the property. So you have to close 5 deed of sale for one title. Okay, that is clear?
Yes, ma'am. I have question, ma'am. Is
Yes.
it fine not to disclose the price of each owner sa lahat ng owner? Is it okay na not to disclose to all of them? Like the price ni A, ni B, ni C?
Yeah, you don't have to disclose it anyway because negotiation is from each party. What the broker has to do here is negotiate from each party for each party to agree. So it is up to the owners to discuss with themselves. But in this scenario, 5 of us, 5 of the owners don't really know each other, right? Even if we know each other, it is up to us to call each other and ask for that selling price. Tama ba?
Yes po, ma'am.
You get the point? Pero it does not necessarily mean I have to call Godo. Godo, magkano mo binibenta yun sa'yo? I don't have to do that. If with the 5 co-owners here, kasi we can own the property not because 5 of us are partners to buy said property, right? We can be co-owners. In this case, in my scenario, the I can own the property because the former owner owes me money, so I have a share there, right? Does not necessarily mean that 5 of us are friends and we bought the property all at the same time.
Ma'am Karen,
Yes.
I have a question. Kunyari, like your scenario, I want to sell my 20% at 100,000 per square and the others like 20,000 lang, something like that. Can
Yeah.
you accumulate the total and pag sa selling price that's the broker will put in the market, then you will get your higher ano.
The broker will.
You
If I'm the
parang
broker,
yeah.
if I'm the broker, I will not put up the property
Mhm.
that for sale because you have to
Mm.
discuss with 5 owners, right?
Mhm.
So in this case scenario, it is the buyer who looked for these owners of said property. It is the buying broker who looked for this property because I really wanted that property. My buyer wanted this property. But if I'm the listing broker, I will never even attempt to get a, because you will have to get 5 authority to sell, right?
Yes.
So there is no unified authority for you to sell one property because there are 5 co-owners. Co-ownership in a property is very difficult to sell because you have to discuss with 5 different owners. If they are siblings, then it is easy to sell because one sibling can have the special power of attorney to represent all the other siblings. In the case of Mary Grace Sarangaya, they are all siblings, so one sibling can represent all the others. But in my case scenario, we don't really know each other here. The 5 owners does not know each other. So the thing for you to do is have 5 sales, in the 5 individual sale with one title. You get the point? You have to negotiate for that sale in a day. You have to finish the sale in a day or 2 from the 5 owners to get the 100% ownership of the title.
Ma'am, question on the...
Regardless of the ownership, does not mean that each of us will have 20% share. No? Basta it has to add up to 100%. I can have more or I can have less. The 5 owners will have different percentage of sharing, but you have to complete the 100% shares to close the sale of that property.
Oh, so, ma'am, that's my question. So, can pwedeng the other party have a bigger share? It depends on how much he wants to
Yeah, it depends on
sell
the
it. All right, I get it.
yeah, it depends now on the negotiation of the broker to the 5 owners to the 5 co-owners. So the sale can be different prices depending on what the seller wants. Okay?
Yes,
Ma'am?
ma'am. Yeah, yeah.
Ma'am, clarify ko lang yung understanding ko of what you said. So, in this case, tigto 20% sila, equal ownership. And then, the broker will negotiate the sale of each kasi iba-iba yung presyo nila. So, 5 different DOAs to. Tama po ba? In terms
Yes.
of documentation. 5 DOAs. Tapos, hindi na kailangan ng isang DOAs to sum it up for the whole. Hindi na.
No. So there are 5 DOAs.
Anong title nun, ma'am? Deed of absolute sale pa rin siya? Or
Yes. Deed of absolute sale.
representing anong tawag doon?
One title
Yeah.
5 DOAs, one title.
So, same lang din pala yung documentation. Okay po. Eh, paano yung ma'am sa like CGT, DST? Ganun din, solo-solo din.
Yes, solo-solo din.
Okay. Okay po.
One title. But car would be given to one title kasi it's just one title.
Miss Karen, can it be one DOAS and then just 5 signatories on that DOAS? Or it really has to be separate?
Because the 5 owners do not agree to a single amount, right?
Yeah.
So you have to come up with 5 DOAs on the different prices for each.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up with one, summing up to one title.
Okay. Thank you.
So car, Myra, you want to say something? You want to ask something?
For siblings. Kumbaga, ganun din man yung scenario na yung isa ayaw niya ng ganun kababa, yung isa mas mataas.
I cannot understand.
Does it also apply man for siblings? Like yung isa, gusto niya mas mataas yung presyo niya, the rest, okay lang din na mas mababa.
It's different for siblings because siblings normally isa lang yan. They will be represented by one party. So if it is siblings, then they have to discuss amongst themselves ano yung presyo. Normally, pag siblings, hindi yan separate deed of sale. Kasi pare-parehong owner, pare-parehong family name. So that's an estate ready.
Okay, thank you po.
So that's clear. Let us go back to the discussion. I hope you will be able to sell a property like that. I was able to close several cases like that, but it takes so long for you to close it. But it's a learning experience to brokers to be able to close a sale like that. Let's go back to discussion. So there is co-ownership whenever the ownership of an undivided thing or right belongs to different persons. There is no co-ownership when the different portions owned by different people are already concretely determined, even if this is not yet technically described. So that is Article 484 of the Civil Code. While Article 1612 of the Civil Code states that there is right of repurchase or preemption or redemption. The right to repurchase applies only to the extent of shares owned by the owner. And the Article 1623 of the Civil Code is the right of legal preemption or redemption shall not be exercised except within 30 days from the notice in writing by the prospective vendor. The deed of sale shall not be recorded in the RD unless accompanied by an affidavit of the vendor that he has given written notice thereof to all possible redemptioners. And Article 493, co-owner may sell his right over an undivided portion but cannot sell those of the others. You can only sell those that belongs to you. And condominium ownership is, the condominium ownership is a different kind. So it's a combination of sole and co-ownership. Sole ownership refers to the unit, no, condo unit for the independent use of the owner. While co-ownership, you co-own the condominium project. All unit owners are co-owners of the land plus the common areas of the building. But these are areas that are not alienable of the condo project. So condominium ownership is a combination of both a sole and co-ownership. What is ownership of land? Ownership of land includes beneath the surface and above the surface. So beneath or above it, you own. When you say you own the land, it is up to the center of earth or as high as the sky can see. Of course, it depends on the height restrictions of or the code of restrictions of imposed by government. Surface, subsurface, and air right. Land in its legal signification extends from the surface downwards to the center of the earth and extends upwards indefinitely to the skies. That is the ownership of land, no? And surface and subsurface of rights of an owner entitle him to construct thereon any works or make any plantations and excavations without detriment to servitudes and special laws. And the air right is the right of the owner to use and control of the airspace of his land subject to the requirements of aerial navigation laws and contracts. So there is a case wherein, you remember there is a proposal for the new airport to be constructed in the Cavite area near the Sangli Point, right? Have you heard of that news before?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Project of SMC, San Miguel Corp. And Do you know why it was not, the project did not push through? Instead, the project was relocated to Bulacan. Do you know the reason behind? Anyone? Anyone?
I think it's the air rights, ma'am.
Yes, the air rights, no? Sino? Air rights of whom? Because according to the law, you own the property, your property, up to the center of the earth, pababa, or sa air rights, sa'yo ang air, as high as the sky can see, no? As stated in my lecture. So, sino yung nag-oppose?
I think yung mga residential around or yung mga buildings na andun. Kasi pag mayroong airport, I think, di ba kailangan mag-land siya na pababa?
Oo. So,
Tapos hindi siya makaland.
Sino yun mga yan?
Mga informal settlers or yung mga neighboring
Formal
buildings?
settlers will not agree. Hindi naman kanya yung lupa eh.
Nga pala. Yung mga owners na may mga building structures?
Sino nga? Saan?
Hindi ko po alam kung anong pangalan.
They are from Ayala, Alabang. From the Ayala, Alabang. So, sumakit ang ulo ni what's the name of the SMC head? Si
Ramon Ang.
Yeah, si Ramon Ang. Diba? Sumakit ang ulo niya. So, nalipat niya sa Bulacan. Diba? So, all the properties in Bulacan now became, nag-progress because of the progression of the area in Bulacan because of the airport. Going back, what is the right to hidden treasure? Kasi, di ba, you say that up to the center of the earth, you own it. So, what if I excavate and I was able to find hidden treasure in my property? What is hidden treasure? It is defined as any hidden or unknown deposit of money, jewelry, precious objects whose lawful ownership is not shown. So, to whom shall the hidden treasure belong to? Hidden treasure belongs to the landowner. When the discovery is made on the property of another, meaning you are leasing the property, the finder of hidden treasure, not the landowner, is entitled to 50% unless he is a trespasser. If he is a trespasser, he shall not be entitled to any share of the treasure. And if this is of national interest, the state may acquire at a just price those of interest to science or arts. So if the hidden treasure, all hidden treasure belongs to you, belongs to the landowner because you own the property up to the center of the earth. But if you're leasing the property from a property owner and you were able to find the hidden treasure when you excavate the land, the lessee owns 50%, the landowners get 50%. But if you're an informal settler and you were able to excavate the land and find treasure, you cannot own it. It has to go back to the landowner. And if those hidden treasure would be of national interest to science and arts, the government can purchase it with just compensation. How about the right of accession? Means landowner also owns everything produced, incorporated, or attached thereon. What is the rule affecting landowners adjoining rivers? The landowner with own soil deposited as accretion but do not own land left dry or will not lose land inundated by floodwater. River beds that have dried up can be acquired by those whose lands are occupied by the new bed in proportion to the land that are lost. Landowners adjoining the old bed may acquire the same. When a river opens a new bed by natural action, the new bed shall be owned by the government, by the public dominion. So again, the rules affecting landowners adjoining rivers, they will own the soil deposited as accretion. So if your property is at the back of your property is river, the soil that is deposited as accretion, you can own it. But you do not own land left dry or will not lose the land inundated by flood water. Riverbeds that have dried up can be acquired. So you can have to pay, can be acquired by those whose own lands are accompanied by new bed in proportion to the land that you have lost. And the landowners adjoining the old bed may acquire the same. From whom do you acquire it? From the government. But when a river opens a new bed by natural action, the bed now shall become a public dominion. So, saan nangyayari yan? This happens when your property, at the back of your property is a river. There are properties in Quezon City, yung classic Vista Real. There is a river that would divide Quezon City to Marikina, and that river had already dried up. So, who owns now the property? It is the public. So, it is the state, not the developer na Santa Lucia. Legal restrictions of ownership. There are legal restrictions to ownership through zoning laws, subdivision regulations, building code, eminent domain, escheat, and taxation. What is the power of eminent domain? It is the power of the state to take private property for public use, but it has to have just compensation. So it is the power to take private property for public use with just compensation. That's the power of eminent domain. What is escheat? Escheat happens when property is reverted back to the state due to intestate's death of an owner with no heir. So if there is no heir to the property owned by a person, then it is escheated back to the government or reverted back to the government. Police power of the state, there are two powers. Police power, one is taxation, one is zoning laws. Taxation is the power of the state to impose and collect tax and other charges of the estate on the real estate owned by the person. The second is the zoning laws, wherein regulations of the local government unit governing the land use of the property. Number 4 would be the voluntary or contractual restrictions. There is a contractual and a non-contractual restrictions, ownership. So if it's contractual, it can be a lease contract, which is a temporary surrender of your right to possess, the use and enjoy the lease to your renter, and the right of way easement, which is given to an owner of an adjoining land to pass or have access. So if there is a right of way easement, the property owner that gives the right of way is the servient estate, while the entity that enjoys the right of way is the dominant estate. Okay. What is usufruct? Usufruct is also the transfer to another person of the right to enjoy the fruits of the property. What is use of restrictions? Restriction imposed by part of the contract to sell. So, ako, no, I have encountered a lot of words of God to love, not just your spouse, love everybody within your, with love everybody that you would encounter in your life. Documents of ownership, title, a generic word which means proof of ownership. Of course, ownership would always mean the title and possession. No? So two, title would mean the proof of ownership includes the muniments of ownership, such as not just the title, but also the tax declaration, the real property tax payments, the deed of sale, and the OCT or TCT. The Philippine titling system is based on the torrent system, which is developed in Australia. What is quieting of title? It means an action brought to court to remove any cloud or question as to the ownership of property. A plaintiff must have documents but need not to be in possession to bring this action. So when you sell the property, in the deed of sale, always write there the quieting down of title so that there would be no issues during the transfer of ownership from one property owner to the other. What are the modes of acquiring title? It is through private transfer, which is by sale, assignment, donation, or exchange, through succession, acquisition of ownership from the owner who has passed on, or through public grants. What is public grants? This is acquisition of alienable land or agricultural land. What is the land? There are different types of land in the Philippines, right? Residential, commercial, industrial, uh, agricultural, and forest land. So what is alienable? Alienable and disposable are the agricultural land. In public grants, there are free patents or homestead patents given by the DANR. And how many uh, how many hectares of land the government may convey land to a Filipino citizen by homestead, provided the area does not exceed how many hectares?
12 hectares, ma'am.
12 hectares. 12 hectares. So it does not exceed 12 hectares. And emancipation patents, or what we call the certificate of land ownership now, no? Before, it is called the emancipation patents, but now it's called the CLOA, certificate of land ownership. It was originally established by PD 27 and continued by RA 6657 or the CARP 1988 and various extensions thereafter. Public grants can also be in the form of reclamation. Under the PEA or the Philippine Estates Authority, government still owns the reclaimed land but may pay reclaimers in terms of portions of the land reclaimed. So this is what happened in the MOA area, the Bay Area. The land is reclaimed by the government, but the government paid the reclaimed lands to private individuals. So the private individuals, after some time, because of the action of then President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, the whole Bay Area was transformed to the to become like Macau, which is the gambling um, gaming area of the Philippines. That's why the land value progressed. And public grants can be through adverse possession or prescription, applies to alienable agricultural land continuously occupied by a citizen. If it's ordinary prescription, it's 10 years, possession in good faith, while if it is extraordinary prescription, it is 30 years continuous possession. In good faith, 10 years. In bad faith, 30 years. Or public grants through accretion due to alluvium, which is the changes in natural riverbed. Accretion is the process of adding the land. Alluvium is the land, no, which is added during the process of accretion. What is accession? Accession is the right of the owner to things that is added to the land, whether naturally, like the plants and the trees, or artificially, like the buildings or the fixtures. Or what is a riparian owner? A riparian owner is the owner of the land adjoining rivers. And so, again, public grants are free patent or homesteads that are given to us by the DNR, or the CLOA, emancipation patents, or CLOA, certificate of land ownership, or the CARP now and the CARPER, as it is extended to. Then through reclamation, through adverse possession. Adverse possession can be in good faith, 10 years, or in bad faith, 30 years. Or public grants can be through accretion. What is accretion? Accretion is the process of adding the land. Alluvium is the land that is added. Avulsion is the continuous. Avulsion would be the one moment. The process of uh, the soil being. Wait, let me check. Avulsion. The sudden separation of land from one party and is attached to another, especially by the course of a river, or the flooding or change of course in a river. So that is the avulsion. Accession is the right of the owner to the things that is added, whether it is naturally through, which are the plants and the trees, or artificially the buildings and the fixtures. And the riparian owner is the owner of the land adjoining rivers. Mode of acquiring title can also be involuntary events like expropriation. Expropriation is the um, expropriation will be the action by the state of taking property from its owner for public use or benefit, but with just compensation. The power is the eminent domain. This is done by the sheriff to satisfy judgment for closure of mortgage property. Or one of the mode of acquiring title can be through a descent or device. The descent is the hereditary succession without will of the deceased. The device is even a stranger may acquire if disposition has been made by the testator through a will. So if it's a will, it is through a device. Legitim can be legitimate and illegitimate children. The legitimate, the property set aside by the court or by law to compulsory heirs. What is the share of the legitimate child? It is one share. The illegitimate child is a compulsory heir and gets 1/2 of the share of the legitimate heir in case there is no will. For legitimate heirs, if the deceased may have free portion if there is a will, but without the will, there is no free portion. It can also be through succession. The succession is a mode of acquisition of transferring property through the death of the owner of the property by will, by a testamentary succession with a will, without a will, by, it should be operation of the law, or through intestate succession without a will. The decedent is a general term applied to the person whose property is transmitted through succession. The device are person to whom the gifts of real property are given by virtue of a will. The will is the act whereby a person is permitted to control certain degree the disposition of his estate, which is the free portion. The codicil is a supplement or addition to a will after the execution of the will. The testator is person living the person living that will. If you died with a will, that is called the died testate. If you died without a will, it is died intestate. Legitimate, the testator's property that cannot be disposed because the law has reserved it for certain heirs who are therefore called compulsory heir, while the illegitimate child is also a compulsory heir stated by the law, but will receive one half of the share of the legitimate child. A compulsory heir may, in consequence of this inheritance, be deprived of his legitimate for causes expressly stated by law. It can only be affected through a will wherein the legal cause may be specified. A legally adopted child will have the same right and share in the same manner as a legitimate child. Again, a legally adopted child will have the same right and share in the same manner as a legitimate child. In default of legitimate child and descendants of the deceased, so will is going down. Parents then go down. If there are no children, then it goes sideways. Sideways, parents, and then ascendant shall inherit from him or her. In the absence of legitimate descendants or ascendants, the illegitimate children shall succeed to the entire estate of the deceased. What is the general rule on property rights under the Philippine law? The general rule is only Filipino citizens and corporations of at least 60% of the capital of which is owned by Filipinos are entitled to acquire and own land in the Philippines. The 1987 Constitution, Article 4, Section 1, states who are the citizens of the Philippines. Those who are citizens of the Philippines at the time of the adoption of the Constitution, those whose parents, whether father or mother, are citizens in the Philippines, those born before January 17, 1973, of Filipino mothers who elect Philippine citizenship upon reaching the age of majority, and those who are naturalized in accordance to law. Article 4, Section 2 of the 1987 Constitution state, natural-born citizens are those who are citizens of the Philippines from birth without having to perform any act to acquire or perfect their Philippine citizenship. Those who elect Philippine citizenship in accordance with the paragraph 3. Alienable lands of the public domain, you can only own up to 12 hectares or lease up to 500 hectares. What is land of the public domain? Public domain is classified as agri-land, forest, mineral, and national parks. Only the agri-land is alienable. Modes of acquiring title to alienable lands of the public domain is by sale, homestead patent, sales patent, free patent, or through uninterrupted possession for a period of time under a claim of property. So if it's uninterrupted possession, in good faith, how many years?
10 years.
Bad faith,
30
30
years.
years. Uh, and private and real estate property is no limitation. You can own as many as you want. Former natural born citizens may acquire land. This is Section 7, Article 12 of 1987 Constitution, subject to special laws. What are these special laws? BP 185 for residential purposes, 1,000 square meter in urban area or 1 hectare in rural area. RA 7042 as amended by RA 8179 for business purpose, 5,000 square meters per urban area and 3 hectares for rural areas. Former Filipinos can regain citizenship under RA 9225 or the Dual Citizenship Law of 2003. Natural-born citizens of the Philippines who are naturalized as citizens of another country may reacquire Philippine citizenship by swearing allegiance to the Philippines. Can foreigners own land in the Philippines? They cannot, except by hereditary succession, acquisition of real property under the 1935 Philippine Constitution, and purchase of not more than 60% of the units in the condominium project in the Philippines. Or foreigners can own up to 40% of the condominium project. Foreigners can lease land 25 years renewable for another 25 years. Or if you are an investor in the Department of Investment, you can lease it for 50 years renewable for another 25 years. What are the restrictions and rights of private corporations? Private corporations or associations organized under the laws of the Philippines with 60% capital that is owned by the Filipinos are entitled to acquire and own private lands, but not in excess of 1,024 hectares. If leasing, not to exceed 2,000 hectares. They may hold alienable agri-lands of the public domain only by lease for a period not to exceed 25 years, but can be renewable in 25 years, but it cannot exceed 1,000 hectares. What is a deed? A deed is a written instrument used to transfer ownership of land and or the improvements. The deeds must have the buyer or seller or grantor and grantee. There should have it should have the word of conveyance. It should have the signature of the grantor. So seller, it should have this. It can be a unilateral, wherein the seller, the deed has to have the signature of the seller or grantor and at least 2 witnesses, and it has to be notarized to be able to register the sale. What is the basic requisites to the validity of contract to buy and sell? It's COC, consent, object, cause. Consent of the contracting parties. Object, what is the object? Object certain, which is the subject matter of the contract. The object would be the property for sale. And the cost or consideration would be the obligation which is established or the amount. A contract is void if consent is from, number one, an unemancipated minor or those persons below 18 years old. So that becomes void. If it is contracted by an insane or demented person or deaf and mute who do not know how to write, it becomes void also. This is under Article 1327 of the New Civil Code. If consent is given through mistake or through violence or through intimidation, undue influence or fraud, the contract will be voidable or valid until annulled. So what is voidable? Voidable is if it's done by mistake, you have to correct it for it to become acceptable and not void. What are the obligations of property owners in the Philippines? You have to pay your RPT or real property tax and the SEF or the Special Education Fund tax. Comply with the building code as requirements. Observe the subdivision requirements in case property is located in a subdivision. Comply with the zoning regulations of the LGU. Comply with the Philippine laws on eminent domain, escheat, easement of right-of-way, taxation, police power. In case of condominium unit owners are obliged to pay the real property tax and special education fund tax of your unit, and also to also pay the RPT and the special education fund tax on the common area. And number two, get insurance of your unit and share in the payment of the insurance premium on the common areas. Comply with the use of restriction, pay your condominium association dues and assessments. If there would be one foreigner who is an owner of the condominium unit, then a condo corp has to be created. What is the property relations between spouses? In EO 209 Family Code, the type of ownership, the type of relationship, property relations between spouses would be absolute community, absolute separation, conjugal property of gains. Before marriage, spouses may choose from the three types of relationships by signing a public instrument or a prenup. If you do not want it to be an absolute ownership, then you have to have a prenup to be registered in the local civil registry. If none is made, then the absolute community governs. When? When is the date? It is August 3, 1988 onwards. Property relation between husband and spouse with no prenup would be the absolute community would govern. What is the definition of absolute community? Ownership of all properties acquired before and during marriage, except for exclusive properties. What is an exclusive property? These are acquired by gratuitous title during marriage, properties for personal use, except for jewelry, and properties acquired before marriage by a spouse with legitimate descendants by former marriage. So it's absolute community. Now, if you wanted absolute separation, ownership of all properties acquired before or during marriage are separate. How do you get an absolute separation? You have to have a document stated, no, signed. In the absence of a prenup, you have to have a signed document prepared by a legal counsel to state that you will have absolute separation of property between you and your husband. Or conjugal partnership of gains. Only those properties acquired during marriage are conjugal. Those acquired before marriage are still separate. Those acquired during marriage by gratuitous title, by redemption, barter, or exchange with one's exclusive property or purchase with exclusive money are also separate. So if it is owned by the husband, the male, it is called the what type of ownership? Capital ownership. Special notes: gambling losses not chargeable to community property. Winnings are part of it. So um, gambling losses are not are not chargeable to community property. But when you win in the one moment ha. Sorry for that interruption. So again, gambling losses are not chargeable to community property, but winnings is a absolute community. Spouses jointly administer community property, but in disagreement, look at this, husband decide. Termination of conjugal partnership is only through death or a judicial decree of separation or through a annulment of marriage. Causes for judicial separation of property, it has to be judicially declared absentee, sentenced to jail for long term, you are being abandoned by the spouse, separation of at least 1 year, or abuse of power of the spouse. Living in couples, co-ownership rules prevail if both have a capacity to marry. If not, only the property they acquired while living together are common. There you go. Next week we will discuss. Next week I will discuss on this fundamentals of property land LRA, no, and related laws. Pero I think the laws have been discussed. You want to go through this? Or naaral niyo doon to kay Attorney MJ? I don't have to go through this. LRA, laws of indies, between.
We can include para refresher na.
Refresher na lang.
Refresher pa rin? Gusto niyo pa to i-refresh? I think the laws has already been discussed by gusto niyo pa ng gusto niyo ng discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Sige. And how about this? See, normally I don't discuss that anymore, but since I'm too happy with my sale and too happy with your gift of the video, I was very happy when I saw that. Good.
Thank you, ma'am. And also, we're also happy, ma'am, to be in Tua and to be, all the professors also.
Yeah, nakakatuwa.
Yeah, sa inyo lahat.
And also this one, fundamentals patents also has to be legal, but if you want, I can also discuss. But I know Attorney MJ has already discussed it, but if you want it rediscussed for refresher, we can also go through the patents. Okay? Okay. So let us take an exam as 10 points. Next week, I will give you exam for 142. So next week, I will only